Welcome back to another episode of Military English Made Easy, and this week we finish off with the military basic English in terms of military weapons. A weapon, arm or armament is any device used with the intention to inflict losses or cause damages on structures or systems. Weapons are used to gain a strategic, material or mental advantage over an adversary. Soldiers must have knowledge of the weapons used by their armies as well as those of other armies. Such knowledge includes technical specification, use, maintenance, and safety. The word firearms usually is used in a sense of restricted to small arms, weapons that can be carried by a single person, whereas the word artillery covers larger gun-powered fired weapons. A firearm is a portable gun, a barreled weapon that launches one or more projectiles, often driven by the action of an explosive force. Most firearms have similar parts. The basic components of a firearm. The bore is the inside of the bun's barrel through which the projectile travels when fired. The breech is the area of the firearm that contains the rear end of the barrel where the cartridge is inserted. Simply, the breech is the back. With the early firearms, the technology limited how guns were loaded. For centuries, guns could be only loaded through the muzzle, and they were known as muzzle-loading guns. Later, as technology improved, guns could be loaded through the breech and were referred to as breech loading. The cylinder is the part of the revolver that holds cartridges in separate chambers. The cylinder of a revolver rotates as the gun is cocked, bringing each chamber into alignment with the barrel. The grip is the portion of a handgun that is used to hold a firearm. The hammer is the part of the firearm that makes contact with the bullet primer to ignite the powder and propel the bullet out of the muzzle. For most handguns and some rifles, the hammer is visible on the outside of the firearm. However, for most rifles and shotguns these days, and some pistols, the hammer is internal. With some guns, the hammer doesn't even contact the primer directly at all. In those cases, a firing pin is used. The firing pin is struck by the hammer, driving it forward into the bullet's primer to fire the round. A magazine is a spring-operated container that can be fixed or detachable, which holds cartridges for a repeating firearm. Muzzle, front, or more specifically, it's the opening on the front of the firearm. This is where the projectile comes out of. The muzzle of a gun in the front end of the barrel is in the front end of the barrel where the projectile exits the firearm. The trigger is the lever that is pulled or squeezed to initiate the firing process. It is the part of a firearm that fires the round. On certain guns, like single-action revolvers, the hammer has to be cocked or pulled back into position before the trigger can be pulled. In those cases, the pull of the trigger releases the hammer to fire the round. With most other guns, the trigger pull is considered double action, in that pulling the trigger both cocks the hammer and releases it, thereby firing the weapon. The trigger guard is the position of a firearm that wraps around the trigger to provide both protection and safety. In terms of other names and parts of a handgun, we can have the rear sight, slide stop, front sight, grip safety, and apart from that, take down lever, slide, back strap, front strap, and lanyard loop. Types of firearms. Handguns. Handguns are handheld, short-barreled firearms. They are the smallest of all firearms. There are three common types of handguns: single-shot pistols, revolvers, and semi-automatic pistols. Shotguns and rifles. Shotguns are a type of firearm that fires shells containing either shot, small round of pellets, or a slug, a solid projectile. A rifle is a firearm to be fired from the shoulder with a barrel that has a helical groove or pattern of grooves, which is called rifling, cut into the barrel's walls. The raised areas of the rifling makes contact with the projectile, for small arms usage called a bullet, imparting spin around an axis corresponding to the orientation of the weapon. The word rifle originally referred to the grooving, and a rifle was called a rifled gun. Automatic firearms. An automatic firearm is generally defined as one that continues to load and fire the fire cartridges from its magazine as long as the trigger is depressed or until the magazine is depleted. These include machine guns, submachine guns, and assault rifles. Machine guns are automatic weapons of small caliber that are capable of rapid sustained fire. Most machine guns are belt-fed weapons that fire from 500 to 1000 rounds per minute and will continue to fire as long as the trigger is held back or until the supply of ammunition is exhausted. Modern machine guns are classified into three groups: the light machine gun, medium machine gun, and heavy machine gun. A submachine gun, or SMG in short, is a lightweight automatic small arms weapon chambered for relatively low energy pistol cartridges and fired from the hip or shoulder. A short-range weapon, the submachine gun is rarely effective at more than 180 meters. It fires at rates as high as 650 or more rounds per minute and weighs between 2.5 to 4.5 kilograms. Assault rifles. An assault rifle is a selective fire rifle that uses an intermediate cartridge and a detachable magazine and has an effective range of at least 300 meters. Ammunition. For rifles and handguns, the cheapest cartridges or complete loaded rounds of ammunition are those featuring a full metal jacket projectile. A FMJ bullet incorporates a soft core, usually lead, encased in a shell of harder metal and requires less manufacturing than the bullets used in other complex self-defense and hunting loads. In addition to cost, another important factor for target or training ammunition is how much recoil it produces. Cartridges with full metal jacket are usually the best for training and target practice. Bullets come in various types. The type of bullets and their acronyms: LRN, lead rounded nose; WC, wad cutter; SWC, semi-wad cutter; SJ, semi-jacketed; FMJ, full metal jacket; SJHP, semi-jacketed hollow point; JHP, jacketed hollow point; and RBCD, special. When interested in cartridges, we should be aware of a word ballistics that comes from the Greek word balein, which means to throw. When a bullet is fired, it follows a trajectory and is assigned a velocity, and these two things account for how a bullet performs. The bullet does not fly in a straight line, but is lifted and then begins to drop as it loses velocity, the action happening between the POA, point of aim, and POI, point of impact. There are 5 recognized rates of fire, and troops should be well drilled in their use and application. Deliberate. 5 rounds per minute for rifles, best used at long range against small targets or indistinct targets. This should be very accurate fire. Snap shooting. 2 rounds per exposure for assault rifles, 3 to 5 rounds for machine guns. Best used at short range with short exposure, like in an urban environment. This is derived from the double tap. Rapid fire. 20 rounds per minute. The sustained rate of fire for the machine gun. This is the best used or against assaults since it's quick, accurate fire. This should be the rate of fire used to gain or, if necessary, maintain fire superiority. A standard magazine has 30 rounds, so it is roughly one shot fired every 3 seconds. Intense fire. 30 to 40 rounds a minute. This is used to defeat rapid fire and gain fire superiority. Weapon fire should still be aimed when possible. Full auto. Machine guns should fire 8 to 10 rounds bursts. This is used to break out of an ambush or gain immediate fire superiority. Guns should fire 3 to 5 round bursts whenever possible, 8 to 10 round bursts at the most. This gives the gunner time to readjust his aim and help him keep the barrel from overheating as quickly. You should not forget that the more rounds are fired, the hotter the barrel will become. Magazines are hand-loaded and troops will frequently carry additional cases of ammo to reload them. If you carry too much ammo, you are going to be a nice slow-moving target. On the contrary, if you carry too little ammo, you might be a fast-moving target. Ammunition is made of steel, brass and lead, so not very light to carry. Magazines are also made of metal. Magazine pouches should be located on the sides, where they do not interfere with the soldier when he tries to become one with the ground while bullets zip by overhead. Fire discipline is frequently the difference between resisting an assault and getting overrun by one. Fire all your ammo in the first few minutes of a firefight and you can bet the enemy will still have some left to finish you off. Run out of ammo during an assault and you can bet you are going to fail. Fire discipline makes a difference, simply separating the living from the dead. Never assume you know the gun. Before even touching a firearm, you should be familiar with the safety rules. These are called safety precautions. Ask if the gun is unloaded. Check for yourself. It is your responsibility to check for yourself. Point the muzzle in a safe direction and make sure that the safety is on and then immediately check to see if it's loaded. Do not forget the old saying, there is no such thing as an unloaded gun. When it comes to handling a firearm, there are some basic rules that should always be followed. Always point the muzzle in the safe direction. Remember, your firearms should never be pointed at anything you do not intend on shooting. Keep your finger off the trigger. If you are not in the process of firing your gun, at no time should your finger ever be inside the trigger guard. Make sure you are using the right ammo. Using the wrong type of ammunition can seriously damage your gun and can cause serious injury to yourself and those around you. Every firearm you touch should always be considered a loaded weapon. Artillery equipment. Artillery is a class of large military weapons built to fire munitions far beyond the range and power of infantry's small arms. The word artillery usually refers to shell-firing guns, grenade launchers, howitzers, mortars, rockets, and guided missiles. Grenade launchers are weapons that launch grenades with more accuracy, higher velocity, and to greater distances than a soldier could throw. Howitzers is a type of artillery piece characterized by a short barrel and the use of small propellant charges to propel projectiles in high trajectories with a steep angle of descent. Mortars provide close-range, rapid response and indirect fire capability to an infantry unit in tactical combat. They are considered infantry mortars only if they are of 120 mm caliber. The larger weapons usually require wheeled assemblies to allow them towing either by hand or by light tactical vehicles. Anti-aircraft and anti-tank missile system. Anti-aircraft warfare refers to all measures designed to annul or reduce the effectiveness of hostile air action. They include ground and air-based weapon systems such as self-propelled howitzers, anti-aircraft guns and surface-to-air missiles. Self-propelled howitzers are tracked or wheeled artillery systems. They have high degree of mobility, which is their main advantage over towed howitzers. These artillery systems are used as combat support weapons. Most of modern self-propelled howitzers are fully or potentially armored. In modern combat, these artillery systems often exploit their mobility to shoot and scoot type attacks in order to avoid counter-battery fire. An example of a self-propelled howitzer is the RAK system or KRAP system in Poland. Self-propelled anti-aircraft guns. Anti-aircraft guns are weapons designed to attack aircraft. Such weapons commonly have high rate of fire and are able to fire shells designed to damage aircraft. They also are capable of firing at high angles, but are also usually able to hit ground targets as well in a direct fire role. Surface-to-air missile, SAM in short, is a missile designed to be launched from the ground to destroy aircraft or other missiles. It is one type of anti-aircraft system. In modern armed forces, missiles have replaced most of other forms of dedicated anti-aircraft weapons, with anti-aircraft guns pushed into specialized roles. To check your understanding on the topic, answer yourself these questions. Name the main parts of a firearm. Choose 8 to 10 unknown military terms from the text and find their definition. Define automatic firearms and specify the weapons they include. What do you know about the recognized rates of fire? And what does artillery equipment refer to? For this week, this is all, a longer episode, and next week we'll focus on military vehicles. Have a nice weekend, nice week, stay in touch with English and see ourselves next time. Bye!